A minister told his congregation, next week I'm going to preach about the sin of lying. To help you understand the sermon, I want you all to read Mark chapter 17. The following Sunday, as he prepared to deliver the message, he asked for a show of hands. He wanted to know how many had actually read Mark 17. Hands went up all over the sanctuary. The minister smiled and said, Mark has only 16 chapters. I will now preach my sermon. I almost asked you guys last week to read Mark chapter 17, that it was going to do that. And I thought, no, I don't want to get any rotten tomatoes thrown at me. Thou shalt not lie. Actually, Exodus says, thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor. Falsely accusing or testifying against another person is called perjury. It can get you in deep trouble. I remember as I'm looking at this commandment is how it's in with those commandments on how we treat each other. Honoring your father and your mother, and not committing adultery, and not stealing, not lying. Last week, about not stealing was about respecting each other's property. This commandment is about respecting each other's reputation and living honestly. When you really come down to it, our reputation's important. And if you're going to break this commandment and lie about somebody else, you're also stealing. Because you're stealing their reputation. I just love the way these commandments tend to work together and are intertwined with each other. It just tells you they belong there. Exodus chapter 23 gives us some insight about this commandment. Get to the right page here. If you're looking for the page in your Bible, it's page 119, at least in my Bible. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a wicked man by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd, and do not show favoritism to a poor man in his lawsuit. Do not spread false reports. Deuteronomy chapter 19, around verses 18 and 19, give the punishment for liars. Do to him what he was trying to do to his neighbor. I thought about all kinds of things there, and I shared a few weeks ago about the neighbor who kept honking his horn at 10:30 at night. And one night it was 12:30 in the morning on a Saturday night, no less. And I actually thought, well, maybe this would apply there. He's trying to do something to the whole neighborhood. Maybe I should go out and try something to do to the whole neighborhood. And the other day, he started honking his horn at 5:30 in the afternoon. Sitting in front of his house, honking his horn. Honk, 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 honk. I didn't know if he was trying to warn them he was home from work, if he was trying to get one of the kids to come out of the house, but I accidentally hit the panic button on my car thing, getting my keys out, because I was getting ready to do something else. And you know what? Lo and behold, my horn started honking, and he looked over at me. So I know how to stop him now. But when I really stop and look at this thing out of Deuteronomy, due to the person who was trying to do something to you, the same thing they were trying to do to you. And so if someone's trying to get me thrown in jail, they need to be thrown in jail. If someone's telling a fierce lie about me, so say I lose a job, they need to lose their job. It goes to that eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth thing, and that's punishment. If you're trying to get someone put to death, that's what the commandment says. Whatever that person was trying to do to you with their lives, with their bearing false witness, should be done to that person. Leviticus 19:11 says, You shall not lie to one another. Proverbs 6 says God hates a lying tongue. And Proverbs 12 says lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. I look at all these verses and I look at that commandment that says, thou shalt not bear false witness. And I have to say that the truth is important to God as we relate to Him and as we relate to others as well. Psalms chapter 15, King David's writing. He says, who may dwell in your sanctuary, O Lord? He who speaks the truth, he who has no slander, he who does his neighbor no wrong, he who keeps his oath, even when it hurts. I find it rather awesome that King David is writing this after some of the things that he did, after some of the things that he went through, after his heart cry of getting back to God. And I believe that David found what is really important here. God expects truth to be ingrained in every single part of our lives. Well, with those thoughts in mind, let's look at the commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Most of us were raised with the thing of the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not lie. And so we had the thing, if you put your hand in the cookie jar and your mother asked you, did you take those cookies? And if we said no, you were breaking two commandments. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie. Pretty simple. Did you study for that test? Yes. It doesn't look like it on the grade. No, you didn't. But you lied about it so your dad wouldn't knock you upside the head. Recent surveys on honesty say that 9 out of 10 people admitted that they lie on a regular basis. And I have to admit, as I talk to different people, none of you, of course, but as I talk to different people out in the world and in different things I'm involved in, I often look at them and wonder, are they telling me the truth? Now, they tell me that there's a whole bunch of signs that you can look at if someone is talking, and you'll know if they're telling you a lie or not. Things like if they're right-handed and they're telling you a lie, their eyes will drift off to the right while they're telling you a lie. And if they're left-handed, their eyes will drift off to the left. And there's just a whole bunch of things. If they're telling you a lie, they'll cover their mouth while they're talking. I've been trying to look for those things in people that I'm dealing with, and I haven't noticed those, but it goes to this whole thing. So many people lie about so many things that we wonder, who can we trust? We look on, those of us who are hooked on the internet, look at Facebook all the time. You know, if the news is on Facebook, it must be true because it was on the internet. This person's accusing that person of lying, and this president's lying, and that former president's lying, and this person's lying, and it just makes you wonder, what really is the truth? Jeremiah 9:4 says, let everyone be on guard against his neighbor, and do not trust any brother. Everyone deceives and slanders. Well, that's kind of a sad writing about life back then. I can remember some stories from when we were involved in boys and girls camps and the teen camps back in the day when we had the energy to do those things. I can remember some Olivet music groups coming to do the music and be involved in camps for the week, and invariably, every once in a while, some young lady would get upset at some young man that was in the quartet and accuse him of things which could literally ruin that young man's life. And especially if it's a young girl accusing a guy who's above age of doing things to her or even suggesting things, it can get pretty serious fast. I remember one incident in particular where a girl from our church accused a quartet member of touching her. And she started with this accusation on Tuesday and carried it all the way through till Thursday. And I can remember Marcy going and talking to this young lady and saying exactly what happened and continuing on about it. And finally on Thursday, this young lady broke down crying and said, I got mad at him because he corrected me in something, and so I thought I would get him, but I didn't realize it could ruin his entire life. I've seen that happen time after time after time after time. False accusations deeply hurting people that could literally ruin their lives. That's why I think it is so crucial that we follow this commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witnesses against other people. Why do people lie? Why do people do those things? Well, personally, if you lie, it may be to avoid the consequences of wrongdoing. I didn't study for that test, but yes, Dad, I did study for that test, and I studied hard. And I don't know, it must be the teacher's fault that I got a bad grade on it and I flunked it. And the reason we would do that is to not get clobbered. People lie to invent excuses to keep out of trouble. I know adults that do that. They're in all kinds of trouble and they do things, but it's never their fault and they never own up to it. And so they invent all kinds of excuses. But really, if you're the one that caused the problem, you need to admit it at least to God, if nobody else, before it becomes this horrible lie. Sometimes people lie to get others to do what they want, and sometimes it's just to get our own way. Thou shalt not lie. I've had this thought. Sometimes we lie by what we don't say. We see it on TV all the time. I forgot to turn my phone off and it just rang. Sorry. Sometimes we see it on TV all the time. Something will happen and they're in one of these detective shows. They're getting ready to go to court and somebody won't speak up about what they saw. That would get somebody off the hook and they would end up not going to jail. But they're afraid to testify in a court of law because they may get in trouble themselves because they saw something and the person that they're going to actually get in trouble actually did the thing, may come and get them. And so they stay quiet and the innocent person goes to jail. But you know how those TV programs at the very last minute the person comes forward and goes, I'll speak up. Unfortunately, that goes on in real life all the time. We'll hear something about somebody, but we know the truth. And so we don't speak up, and that person ends up getting hurt desperately. I think kids probably do that to their siblings all the time. They know who actually got their hand in the cookie jar, but they don't speak up. Sometimes we lie by not saying what we know for fact, and it causes a problem there as well. Exodus chapter 32 talks about Aaron. He took the people's gold and threw it into a fire, and out came a golden calf that the people then worshipped. It all has to do with Moses and with the Ten Commandments coming and all that, right in that time of history. What Aaron forgot to mention is that he had already had a golden calf handcrafted in the process. It wasn't some magic thing where he took the people's gold and threw it in the fire and out came a golden calf. He wowed the people with what happened but he didn't tell the whole story. He only told half the story. Give me all your gold. Throw it in the fire. Pulls out a golden calf. I wonder how many times we lie by only telling part of the story. I'm not going to give any examples there, but it's simple. Sometimes we know things that we just don't tell the whole story, and it leaves people wondering. I've often had people come to me and start talking to me about problems, about different things, and I just learned there's always more to the story. If you just tell the whole story in the first place, it would help. Satan twisted the truth to Eve in the garden. And look what that caused. We now have to work for a living. I think about this twisting the truth. There's a bar right across from Olivet's campus. It's called the Library. I've often wondered, guys, are there any students who say, I'm going to the library? And that's where they go? Just wondered that. They're telling the truth. They're going to the library, but their roommate may think they're really going to the library to study. Now I know enough about college students to know there's some students that if they said to go to the library, their roommates would all pass out of shock. There's another bar out here on 17 about 5 miles. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it used to be there called The Office. Honey, I'll be at the office late tonight. Hold my dinner, or don't hold my dinner, or whatever. Twisting the truth. Now, those are crazy examples, but we've all been involved there where people just twist things so it sounds their way. Thou shalt not lie, I believe, comes under those headings. Get your tomatoes out now. Gossip. We used to call it black line fever. People get on the phone and all day long. No, these guys are saying, what's black line fever? See, they're used to wireless phones, cordless phones, to cell phones. I guess now you'd have to call it wireless fever or something, I don't know. It used to be over the backyard fence. Do you know what so-and-so did? And it may be true or not be true. And then that's where it also gets in with sometimes we'll hear something about somebody and we know the truth, but we stay quiet. And so we let that lie continue till it destroys that person's reputation. Cheating and fraud's a big problem in schools. It's also a problem in life. 84% of students say their friends cheat. 43% say sometimes a person has to lie or cheat in order to succeed. I've got to think about this whole thing of lies. I was looking at lies in the Bible. Abraham and Isaac and others told lies. 1 Samuel 20:28, we find King Saul asking where David was, and Jonathan said to him, David asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. Now, Jonathan knew full well that David was hiding in a field nearby. King Saul was mad. He wanted to kill David, and Jonathan was able to send David away to safety. He lied. 1 Samuel 6:2, God informed Samuel that he was sending him to find another king. See, God had rejected King Saul and his heirs. Samuel replied, how far shall I go? For if Saul hears me, he will kill me. Samuel took a cow, a heifer, and said, I'm on my way to make a sacrifice to the Lord. And he left, lying. That's a little bit different type of lie than Abraham and Isaac. Abraham lied about Sarah being his wife. She's my sister. She was his sister, but she was also his wife. He lied about it to save his neck, to save Sarah. Isaac did the same thing. It went on down through history. I start looking at these lies and I'm thinking, here's these people lying. How can they do that? How can they get away with that? And then I ask myself a question that I've asked several people this week. Did God ever allow lying? And one person said to me, only at night when I lie down. And several other people absolutely said, no, God would not allow lying. And yet I look at these two stories that I shared, and I see Samuel lying about where he's going. I see Jonathan lying about what he knew about David. And I stop and I think, God evidently allowed this type of a thing to spare a life. Stopping murder. That's the only instance I find anywhere in the Bible where it's okay to protect somebody's physical life from death. What about white lies? I've been thinking about that. You know, you women put men under pressure a lot of times. Does this dress make me look fat? Now, how are you supposed to answer that? If you say no, then it's, what was that? Yeah, very good. If you say no, then it's, well, what dress does make me look fat? Isn't this baby cute? Now, I got to tell you, I have seen some cute babies. All of ours were just adorable. All of our grandkids are just adorably cute. But I've also seen some really ugly babies. I mean, how in the world do you answer that question? Isn't this baby cute? I thought about, what about that ugly sweater you got for Christmas from Aunt so-and-so that you better wear the next time Aunt so-and-so sees you, but it's so ugly you don't want to be seen in it at all. Olivet has an ugly sweater contest every year, by the way. Matt and some of them used to borrow some of my sweaters, so just keep that in mind. Ugly sweaters, cute babies, that dress. That dress. How do you deal with those things? How do you deal with that person who just got this new piece of furniture in their house? I know you guys just got some new furniture. I haven't seen it, so I'm not talking about you, okay? How do you deal with that horrendous piece of furniture that somebody bought and you're over at their house and they're just searching for a compliment? Or you're at a wedding and the bridesmaids' dresses, oh my word, and the bride will say, doesn't everybody just love those dresses I picked out for the bridesmaids? And they're the ugliest, awfulest things, and even the bridesmaids don't like them, and they'll never be able to wear them again, and they spend a couple $100 a piece for them. How do you deal with those things? Without telling a white lie, without hurting people's emotions. How do you do that without lying? Well, you thank that aunt for her thoughtfulness that she had in giving you a gift that will keep you warm when you're all by yourself and nobody else can see it. And you remember that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and yes, that baby is cute to somebody. And you remember that that dress really makes you look good. I really like the colors of that dress. You see, there's a way to compliment. There's a way to get out of those situations without lying and without hurting people's feelings. And that's a big part of what the Bible is talking about here, is it puts this in all the relationship issues and how we treat other people. Respect other people's emotions. Don't destroy them. Don't bear false witness against them. Keep going with what you're going and treat each other with the greatest respect and love that you possibly can. We don't want to lie, but we can speak a truth in love and not hurt people's feelings. How do I live honestly in this day and age? Truth in the public arena. You go in a court of law, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That does away with half-truths. That does away with twisting the truth. If we would just remember that, not just in a court of law, but every day in everything that we're involved with. You all know this fact. A lie is like a ripple in a pond. You throw a rock on a pond, and the ripples just start slowly and just keep going out and out and out. You tell that lie, and it leads to another lie that leads to another lie that leads to another lie that you can't remember the first lie, so you have to tell another lie to get out of that first lie you told, and before you know it, you're in deep trouble. How do I deal with that in the day? I order my life by God's rules, and I live in His power daily. I have the utmost of honesty in all of my dealings, and if I make a mistake, I own up to it. I live my life so I never have to be ashamed at how I live on any given day. And I allow myself to grow in Christ. Ephesians 4:15 says, when we speak the truth in love, we grow every way into Christ. Think about that. Speaking the truth in love. It only happens when we start bowing down and worshiping God and allowing Him to have full control of our lives. So we're not just living the commandments, they're ingrained in us every day. We just live them because they're part of our non-negotiable, unalterable terms of our life. I'm going to live this way. Let's worship God.